Thanks for joining us once again. If you are just joining us, we are talking about the case against Mumia Abu-Jamal. If you have followed this case at all, you know that in 1981, a police officer in Philadelphia, Danny Faulkner, was shot and killed while on duty. In 1982, it was Mumia Abu-Jamal who was convicted of that murder. Since then, there has been a debate that has raged around the world about whether the right man has been convicted of that murder and whether he should be on death row at all. If you want to tell us what you think about that, or if you have questions or comments about this case, you can email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. Tigray Hill is the producer and director of a new documentary on this case called The Barrel of a Gun. And before we took the break, Michael Cord, who has served as legal counsel locally for Mumia, raised some points talking about Mumia's factual innocence. Are any of those things that you would like to address? The paraffin test, the gun, the bullet, any of those things?
He talked about my film being a great work of fiction. However, some of the things he said are fiction or half-truths. I can't really get into the specific facts in this time that we have now. But I would ask Mr. Cord that it's been 29 years. By all accounts, Mumia is not going to get a new trial. Why doesn't your client come and just tell his side of the story? Why doesn't his brother tell his side of the story? I think it would help with public opinion. And it really damages his credibility and the people that support him that he won't speak on his own behalf. And I know he has that right. But sometimes you got to stretch and say, hey, listen, this is what happened. I'm innocent, or this is, you know, the way it all turned out.
It's a couple of things. One, I wish I were Mumia's attorney right now, but unfortunately I'm not. But I support the attorneys who are working with Mumia. Professor Ritter is doing a great job, and whatever I can do to assist, I will do. That's the first thing. But the second thing, Tigray, because Mumia's case is a legal case, we have to stay within the law. And the law, through the United States Constitution, as well as the Pennsylvania Constitution, talks about this pesky thing called burden of proof, presumption of innocence, reasonable doubt. That might sound like legal mumbo jumbo. What it means is that the defendant never has to prove anything. Now, if you're talking about
after he's been convicted?
Even afterward, the burden of proof always rests with the prosecution. And I'm so glad Tigray posed that question, because people keep saying, why didn't Mumia testify? Why didn't his brother testify? Well, Mumia did testify at one point. You are aware of that, I'm sure you are. Is that correct? That Mumia did testify at one point, yes.
You're talking about in his first trial?
I'm talking about in connection with this entire legal proceeding. What I mean by that is this.
He gave a written statement.
Well, no, testified in court.
Well, he
Are you aware of that?
Yes, you're talking about during the death penalty phase.
Tiger, you keep asking me at what point. If you followed this case like I did, then you know at what point.
He did at the death penalty phase. He did not give an accounting of what happened that night.
But if a witness testifies, that means attorneys have the opportunity to cross-examine. The questions you pose here today, why didn't the prosecutor pose those very same questions?
That was during the sentencing part of the trial where you can't get into the factual part. I'm saying, I think you need a public relations campaign that you've had after 30 years. First of all, the brother. You can say he didn't get a fair trial. Mm-hmm. You can say he was railroaded. Why won't his brother give an accounting of what happened that night? I mean, before all that, I'd want to know that.
Well, this is where I should probably jump in and inform our viewers. If you have not followed this case for the last 3 decades, Mumia Abu-Jamal's brother was apparently on the scene at the same time, and there has been some speculation that it was not Mumia who actually shot the officer, but it may very well could have been someone else.
That is a theory, but I just want to quickly jump back to what Tigray said, because I grow tired and weary of people continually ignoring what the law mandates. You keep saying to me, you keep saying to Mumia's attorney, why doesn't Mumia say this? Why doesn't Mumia say that? The answer is, if you respect the American legal system, I'm sure you do, it's because the defendant doesn't have to prove anything at any point. If the prosecution says you committed a crime, they got to bring in the evidence and prove it. So don't ask me why. What you're asking me, Tiger, let me just make this one point. What you're asking me is why Mumia didn't do the prosecutor's job of proving himself guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Because he doesn't have to and shouldn't. Well, if you got a case, bring it.
Here's my question for you following up on that. I don't pretend to be a lawyer and say and second guess why he didn't do something 29 years ago. My question would be now, facing death. If I were on death row and I did not commit this, I would do anything and everything I could to convince someone somewhere in power that I was not, I was not the right person. So I think that's what the general public wants to know. Forget the legalities. Suspects talk to the reporters all the time. I guess that's what people are wondering. Why doesn't he tell us what happened?
This case is still in the courts. If the case is still in the courts, it would be foolish for anybody to say anything outside of that. If everything ended, if there were no more appeals, no more hearings, no more anything, at that point, any defendant could say whatever he wants to say. But it seems to me that neither you, nor me, nor Tigray, if your case is still pending and the courts are still hearing it, you hire a lawyer because he's a lawyer, because she's a lawyer. That's the person that does what needs to be done. So until this case is finally and ultimately resolved in a court of law, then we can talk about public opinion. But it's not public opinion that's trying to kill Mumia. It's the law through the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, trying to kill Mumia. This is a legal case. We must adhere to the law.
Tigray, did you find in your research for your documentary, and I should point out that there are other documentaries out there that deal with this case as well, from both sides. Did you find that people really believe he was innocent, or that he did not get the fair trial that he should have been entitled to in 1982?
There's both. There's people that believe he didn't get a fair trial. There are people that believe he's innocent. The Hollywood crowd, a lot of them are against the death penalty, but a lot of them have not read the transcripts, the transcript. And I can respect somebody that says, listen, I'm against the death penalty in all cases. I just believe they have the wrong guy to use as a death penalty poster boy to prevent a death penalty from being used. He's guilty.
But you know that there are how many people exonerated every year, even years after a crime has been committed, and had they been executed, they would not have been allowed to,
I agree, but
to live out their lives.
I don't think any of those people that you're talking about had 4 to 5 witnesses observe what happened, had ballistics evidence, contrary to what Mr. Cord says, that did match the gun, and was found at the scene, laying on the curb. How many of those people that were exonerated had that much evidence? That's so rare that you have that much evidence in a homicide.
All right, on that note, I do have to take a quick break, but we will continue our discussion, and I'm sure there will be more debate here on this topic, the case against Mumia. If you'd like to tell us what you think, email us at lynn@lynndoyle.net. Any comments or questions for Tigray or Michael, we will be forwarding them to the gentlemen, and they will respond appropriately.